Everyone, and welcome to Fearless Flight Live. Tonight, we're going to dive into a powerful real life story, and one that begins with, I can't do this, and ends with, I did it. And you're going to meet Regina Riley and hear what fear really sounds like in the moment, what's changed for her, and what that means to you. So if you've ever wondered whether you can do this, tonight might be the night that everything starts to shift for you. So thanks a bunch for that. And welcome. Here I am, Capt Ron and Dieter Staudinger. And we're really, as always, excited to have you out there. Playing with some new format and some things like that to see if we can keep it interesting, because I can't imagine anything worse than watching Captain Ron talk to a emotionless camera here. But anyway, so we'll get going with that. The first thing I want to do is I want to show you, give you a little highlight of Regina and what she went through. We did a little fun video here, and I'm going to thank her before she ever comes on the screen. But the most amazing thing is when I bring people on here, I'm really sensitive to the notion of not exploiting people, and so we're just totally enamored and grateful for people like Regina coming on, because they tell the story way better than we ever could. Nobody believes us that you can get over this, and it takes people who have real life experiences like Regina to do that. So without further ado, let me show you a little video here, some fun. Let me get this thing back. Okay, here we go.
Most people think you need to feel calm before you fly. That's just not true. I worked with a woman this weekend, Regina. She was shaking. She felt like she couldn't breathe. She wanted to leave. And she said, I don't think I can do this.
And I'm going to stop because I don't think you can probably hear the audio, because I forgot to check the magic boxes that said share sound and optimize for video. So let's just take another run at this. All right, here we go.
This, but she got on the plane anyway. And what she discovered was this: the fear came in waves, and it passed, not all at once, but enough to stay. That's what changes everything, not eliminating fear, but learning you can stay through it.
Okay. Here's our first intro to Regina, and a couple of the pilots that we had on there. We'll go into more about that when we get onto this, and I'm going to bring her on in just a minute. But first, I'll bet there's a few of you that heard this story. Okay, we promise you, we do not solicit these kinds of things in the industry just to keep us busy. They happen, and this was a good one. This was another incident at LaGuardia. LaGuardia is getting a real bad name here.
Actually, it was Newark. Ron.
I'm sorry, Newark. I'm sorry. Oh, I owe apologies to all my airport friends at LaGuardia. Yeah, you're right. It was Newark.
Just so you don't, we don't get any hate mail there.
Oh, it's a United 767. Long old airplane. This has been in the inventory for a long time. It's an ER 400, which is longer than the earlier models to put more people in there. And what happened was I'm gonna go forward to the next slide here and show you the LaGuardia Airport. So you can see this from the air. You see this big red arrow? There was a wind gusting from 15 to 30 knots. So that's about 20 to 35 miles an hour. And that's a player when we're landing at airports. And what we try to do is we try to avoid that as a crosswind. So you can see if that crew, the normal runways here would have been 22 right and 22 left. And the way that would look, the pilots were coming in down from the north up here, and they swung out here, clear skies. You could see all the way to the moon, and then they make a turn right here, and then their final approach here. you can see this runway here is about 6,500 feet. The runway 29 and 11, and this runway here is 9,000, and this one is 11,000. So normally they would come in and land on the long runway here, and so when they got this clearance, everything's routine. They were coming in for Venice, so they've been flying probably about 7 hours or so by the time they got there, middle of the day and everything. And they were giving them this runway because the winds were coming, right? You can see the wind direction. The wind is blowing in from the west, and we always land on into the wind there. And as like I said, in as much as alignment. But the fact that this was 6,500 feet is probably where this is going to make an impact. Was it safe to land on 6,500 feet? Absolutely. That airplane was analyzed before they left the ground in Venice to land here, and all of the parameters met, all the specs were met. They had no problem with the landing distance or anything, even though it was shorter. However, when you get into an environment like this, and the fact that this approach comes down from the north and they make a turn shortly, and they roll out probably only about a mile on final, which is well into the landing environment at that point. And you can see here, this is I-95, I believe, running along here. And what happened is they were down obviously lower than they should have been, and there was a bread truck that was driving to the south on the interstate, and they were timed such that they came down and the left to main gear, it looks like, was the gear that made contact with the top of the bread truck. And in this day and age, everybody's got video. There were video cameras everywhere, including one showing the driver as this airplane ripped through the back of his truck. And I'm sure that nobody was hurt amazingly in this, and that's really a blessing. But I'll bet you that driver had to go home and change his underwear, so to speak, because that would have been an absolutely startling experience for him. And they ended up they hit a light pole as well. They landed. When you listen, if any of you you go on YouTube, it's all full of pilot experts doing their analysis, and some of them are pretty good out there. I got two of them that I listen to primarily, and when you listen to them, you know, if you're a pilot in particular, you see some traps that ended up probably leading to this. So without going into a lot of detail, we'll probably talk a little bit more about this in our monthly live coaching session, and we're going to talk about panic attacks. One of my favorite subjects there, but we'll talk a little bit more about this. So when you came in there, you can say, well, how could they land? I did a little computation here. We're supposed to go over, let me go back here. We're supposed to cross the runway threshold right here, no matter which runway you're landing. When you end the end of the runway, you are supposed to be at least 60 feet in the air. That's a normal approach. And the glide path is a 3-degree angle. And you can see that's not very steep. If you could literally draw that to scale, you'd probably put a thread on the floor on one side of your room, and at the other side of the room, it'd probably only be about 6 inches high above on the wall. And that gives you some angle about how really flat a 3-degree glide slope is. But that's, for an airplane, that's optimal, and that's what we use, 2.5 to 3 degrees. So when this airplane was coming in, it should have been 60 feet over the end here. They hit that bread truck on this freeway, on the interstate highway there. They hit it. And if you say that the bread truck would have been about 12 feet maximum, maybe 15 feet, probably more like 12 feet, they should have been in the air 80 feet at least to be on glide path. So they were about 60 feet probably lower than what they should have. How does that happen? Well, it'll be impossible for me to give you a really, really good feeling that you could completely understand. But when you're turning around on short final like that, and you're coming down, we've got lights off to the side. It's an intricate light system called PAPI. It has red and white lights, And if it has 4 of them on each side, if you see 2 red and 2 white, you're right on the glide slope. If you see 3 or more red, you're low. If you see 3 or more white, you're high. And so that's what we look at. But in this transition, because they weren't stabilized on final from like 5 miles or 10 miles back like we normally would, probably like they would have been if they were landing to the southwest, or to the northwest, I'm sorry, on runway 29, they probably would have had more time to line up. But they ended up low, and the thing I wanted to help understand why it's not that hard to not see when you're that close in. When that airplane touches down, those pilots, when the main gear touch on an airplane of that size, those pilots are still 32 feet in the air. Now, that's probably hard for you to imagine, but that's the big, when you go from flying little airplanes to big airplanes like airliners, that's one of the big challenges, is to get used to that new sight picture there. And you take a big airplane like a 777, a Boeing 777, or the old 747s, they're 50 to 60 feet in the air when the main wheels touch. So you have to get used to that, because when you're 50 to 60 feet with your line of sight in a Cessna, you're way too far up in order to be touching the runway yet. So that's going to probably be one of the things there. And one of the most critical things about being a pilot in any airplane, let alone a modern airliner like that, is the adjustment of your seat height to get all straight and all that. And I'll assume that was probably not a factor, because these guys were all experienced in the 767.
But Ron,
yeah.
Ron, there just a question that fits perfectly with what you're talking. The question is, do we know? So I guess that's the royal we. Do we know if that plane was always scheduled to fly this route with this crew? I guess because you just mentioned, like if somebody is not experienced or whatever. So could it be that there was a last minute change that precipitated that? I don't know. I haven't heard anything.
No, because these folks are typed in that airplane. So let me get a comparison. If you have a Cadillac and a Ford, you don't think about anything. You take whichever keys are available, you go out and get in the car and you drive. But in an airplane, you have a type rating. In addition to all your pilot's licenses, they have a special type rating area on their license, and it says Boeing 767. Okay, now they can fly a 100, 200, 300, 400, the dash on the end, or they could have a Boeing 737, or they could have an Airbus 320. So those are type ratings, and so this crew, they would not have known which particular airplane they were going to fly of the United inventory of Boeing 767s when they went to the airport. But once they got there, they would not have been surprised, like, oh my God, I've never flown one of these before, or I didn't expect to fly today. So that's a great question, and one I never thought about. But no, when they came to the airport, they knew that they were going to fly this particular airplane. And not only that, but they trained in it. They do their simulator training and all that in their type. And we only get typed on one airplane. So if my airline, like Air United, has Boeing 737s, it has Boeing 767s, it has Airbus A320s, I will only fly one of those models until I get an opportunity to fly one that pays me more money, and then I can bid up and get a bigger paycheck. So that's why we move. But when I do that, when I leave the old airplane behind, the old type, and I go into the new type, and now I can only be scheduled for those. So, okay. All right. So let's bring on. I want to introduce you to someone special. I already give her a little puffy interview there, but Regina did something that many of you out there probably really aren't sure that you could do. And that was, she faced her fear and flew. And she's so candid and so forthright with her story and stuff. I just love her to pieces. And what I love about it is the story is real. She didn't eliminate the fear. She just learned how to move through it. And Regina, I'm so glad you're here. I'm going to stop the share. If you want to come on board, there you are. Terrific. And you're still muted, if you can unmute that thing here. So welcome once again. You just did this for me on Sunday. You're a glutton for punishment. So thanks. And we met I mean, not all that long ago, right? A month and a half or something like that.
Yeah, about a month and a half ago. Yes.
And you did a 15-minute coaching session, which I encourage anybody that hasn't done anything. Was that helpful? If you had not done anything else, just talk about that point and what brought you in to do that. First of all, where'd you get the courage to pat yourself on the back for having the courage to do this again? What prompted you to even start looking at anybody, let alone me? Because you have a history with trying to get over this, right?
Yes. I've had a long history of trying to conquer my fear, which I don't think I'll ever conquer, but I made it. I will fly, but I probably will. I flew, but I probably will always have fear. But I found Ron, did some research over the internet, trying to find someone who was willing to fly with me. I had taken classes before dealing with flying anxiety and visualization, but I really needed to help somebody meeting me at the airport and be willing to fly and help me walk through step by step. And that's exactly what Ron helped me with a week ago. Gosh, I can't believe that was almost a week ago now? Yeah.
Last Thursday, so
Yep.
it'll be coming up on that. And I ask people, you and I talked about this. I asked people, what did I really do? And the truth of the matter is, I've never had anybody tell me, but it is kind of a hand-holding thing, don't you think?
Yeah.
It's just, and that's ultimately what a lot of us need. When it's like being, especially if we've had any trauma in our history, it is like being a kid and having somebody just to make you feel like you're safe. So the story you tell yourself is, I don't like this, but at least at this point in time, I kind of feel a little layer of safety. So anyway, yeah.
Yes.
So what was it? So you were looking for somebody to do that. How, when you found me, I guess somehow.
Yes.
And was it because you wanted me to fly with you? I mean, I remember talking about that a lot.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was a big reason, as well as the fact you were a pilot and all your technical background. I really needed help with the technical side of all the sounds. When we flew last Thursday, you really walked me through step by step. Okay, what's that noise? Why is the plane moving now?
Yeah.
When is the door going to close? I had a flight. I had flown before in years past, but I had a really turbulent flight. And then after that flight, I had a family trip planned and I actually didn't get on the plane. That was a couple years ago. I had what I call a panic attack probably. And I left and didn't get on that. And I missed the vacation. So that was
and that's what I was going to ask you, was your connection with flying before this experience. So you had a bad experience and then tell us about that experience and then when you tried to fly then.
Sure. The time I had flown a few years ago, the turbulence to me was pretty bad. And we flew, it was really rough most of the flight for a few hours and landing. And then we were supposed to take another flight back home. And we wound up driving. And then I didn't think it was that.
This was a trip to Colorado, right? From the East Coast?
This was actually the trip right before that. The Colorado I never.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that's right.
And then we planned a Colorado trip, and I actually never even got on the airplane. I got to the airport, packed with my family, and then I couldn't even get on. So I realized I really wanted to travel. I really want to travel. So I needed I needed your help.
And the thing that I think is so admirable is it, and people out there can identify with that, even if they didn't get on a flight. It's just devastating and frightening to think about that. And it's just unbelievable that, and to do that, and you felt crushed. I remember you telling me and disappointed. But for you, again, I tell people, pat yourself on the back because this is real courage. It really is. Wouldn't you agree? I mean,
Yeah. So we met I did your 15-minute consultation, and then I think we did one or two other Zoom coaching calls.
Yeah, I like to coach, give you some opportunities to, give you some stuff to lead up to that. So.
Yep. And I got your kit with the harmonizer that I listened to a few times. And then the day of, the day of was the biggest
Yeah.
help. Again, I really,
And that's the next question I was going to ask you. You know, go through, take us through the night before and the morning of the flight. What were you most afraid would happen?
I was afraid the same thing was going to happen, that when
Yeah.
I heard that door was ready to shut, I was going to bolt off the plane. And
Yeah.
the pre anxiety for me is pretty high. It's like 10 out of 10. I usually don't sleep well at least a few nights before leading up to flights. But I got there, I made it to the airport. I had gone the Saturday before. I think you suggested maybe like a trial run just to go to the airport, figure out
Sure.
parking. So I did do that. And then Thursday I got there early. But I had all the symptoms. I get really upset and panicked. My face was red. I was crying. And I
Yeah.
really wasn't sure I was going to get on, but I'm still laughing about the door, that we didn't realize the door would close. But
And I had promised her, you know, and I do this when I'm flying with people, despite the fact that, you know, she brought me in from Phoenix and went to great lengths to get us together there. You know, I try to tell people it's okay if you do not get on the airplane. And what I try to do is to offer you a different mindset, not that, oh my God, I failed again, but one that says, okay, I got this far. And that's a good step. I'm going to take home. I'm going to sit on that, and I'm going to reorganize and plan on that. And that's important. And as part of that promise, I say, when we're on the airplane, you can feel comfortable. I will watch for the boarding cycle, because the people, when you're filling up the airplane, you know, you can tell when they come to the end of the line, and at that point you can get up and excuse yourself, tell the flight attendants and the gate agent that you got off the airplane. If you do this, make sure you tell them to cancel your reservation as well. But you can get off and without having it, you know, where they close the door and then you panic and do all that. So I promised her to do that. However, we had a seat between us, because now we're on Southwest and they now sell their seats are pre-assigned. So I purposely booked us in seats with the one in between, because it was empty at the time, hoping that nobody would take that seat. But once you get on the airplane, you don't know for sure if there's going to be somebody there. So I promised Regina that I would watch, monitor the door closing so she could see it, because it's behind a bulkhead. We couldn't see it. We were on the left side of the airplane facing forward. And then at one point in time, I'm sitting there, I'm anxious because I'm looking to make sure that I can talk somebody who might try to sit in that seat to switch with one of us, so we're still seated together. And the next thing I knew, they had closed the door, and I think Regina asked me, "Is the door closed?" I said, "Whoops, I blew it." So at that point, but you had gone up and down a little bit, but you were doing pretty well at that point. So you take it from there. What was it like then?
yeah, I was not well before then though. Yeah, Ron helped me. We met at the gate, and I had a lot of pre-anxiety just the hour before getting on the plane as well. So you had the suggestion of getting up rather than just sitting, getting up and walking. And then I think that helped a lot. I do get pretty bad shakes. I don't get this with anything else in terms of the physical reactions. I was crying, my face was red, and I had bad shakes, and my stomach felt pretty bad. But
that's pretty intense fear. When people get to, and let me just interject a little bit, you know, and even though I'm a big proponent of meditation and visualizations and the harmonizer and all that, when people get to that point, no amount of mindfulness is going to get them back. It's just, you gotta get through that. And the hardest thing in the world, which is what makes me so in awe of you and others like you, is the fact that you've stuck with it and you stayed with it and you got through that.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll talk about that a lot more coming up here.
So also too, as we were waiting, the pilots came off from their flight waiting for us to board. And in my mind, the one pilot looked like he was kind of panicked, but he wasn't.
Him up on the screen there, the captain's on the right side. And this was the cutest thing. I had my back to the gate, and the captain had come out, and he looked like he had the release in his hand, and what he was doing was just making sure that checking some information with the gate agents. And as you can expect, he looks serious, But Regina said, "Oh my God, he looks worried." So tell him what we did. And I recommend, even if
Yeah.
I'm not there, you can do this.
So
Yeah.
Ron had the idea to ask, to just ask him, and I wasn't in a condition to ask. So he went up and asked him, and well, he had actually started to walk kind of towards us to go somewhere, and Ron stopped him, and he was very nice. He said, "No, why do you say that?" And Ron explained that I was a fearful flyer, and that I thought he looked worried about the flight, and he quickly said, "No, it's it's nothing to worry about." So then boarding, also walking down the I always forget the name of that containment.
Call it a jetway, a jet bridge, whatever
Jetway.
you want. It's the tunnel we go to get on the tube.
Oh, and we were able to get pre-boarding with Ron. You have the I guess you have the pass, since you have the class with Southwest.
Well, they've changed the circumstances really kind of throughout the industry, but Southwest made it a thing because they don't do pre-boards per se anymore. But you can always walk up during the boarding process, and they're mostly all the same now. But what you do is you find the area in which they'll line up people, particularly in wheelchairs. That's the easiest way to spot the pre-boards. And you walk over there, and it's on your honor. You just walk up to the gate. You can take one extra person with you. So I was able to board with Regina. And what you do is you don't have to say anything anymore. You just hand them your boarding pass when they ask for pre-boards, and you get on. And if they were to ever say anything, all you would do is say, "I have a medical condition," and that's it.
Okay. So we were able to get on, and I still had my pretty bad symptoms of anxiety. But it was really helpful having that extra seat. And then Ron just kind of walked me through the noises as we heard the air conditioning and the connection with the different flow of air through the plane as we were still sitting. And then I think just you helping me kind of bringing me back down to reality a little bit in terms of the fear, like you were saying, kind of, look directly at me, and this is, what you're thinking is not real. But at the same time, like you said, not being dismissive of the symptoms that I was having.
Yeah.
And then
you mentioned when we talked to, I always ask or try to ask, what's it like flying with the non-flying partner? When you said that, I think, your husband Dennis, he tends to try to overcompensate sometimes, and that's very, they love you, and they want to, it's feel a helpless feeling for them to watch you go through that. And so what I recommend is there's 3 peak times before you board, or when they announce boarding, when you become aware of the door closing, and when you're about to take off. And those are the times when you, almost on cue, you went into your sprinter's pose and say, what are we going to do? And that's the time I just recommend kind of replicating when we came into the world. Mom looked into our eyes. She talked to us in earnest. We couldn't understand anything she's saying, and neither can you when your loved ones are doing that. And then touched you comfortably. So yeah.
Yep. So that really helped walking me through all of that. And then when we felt with the door, also, I think the cue that the door was closed was they pulled the tow block away from the wheels, and all of a sudden the plane started to move. And I said, "We're moving," and the door's closed.
Right. How did they do that, Ron? You were going to tell me.
And like Ron mentioned, I think my anxiety kind of comes in waves real bad. It'll be way up high at a 10 for most of pre-boarding, through boarding, and then probably about 15-20 minutes into the flight. And then after about 20 minutes, it started to go away, actually. And then if we hit turbulence, it went back up again. But the breathing method, I had never done that before. I thought I might get sick, so Ron gave me the bag, but then he also taught me the breathing in and out of the bag, and actually physically seeing it open and close. I did that method, and then he just again helped me.
And she's talking about just the sick sack that's in every seat back in front of you. You just take it out. I cup it in my hand, make a little mouthpiece out of it, and I make sure that it goes over my nose and my mouth as well, because it does 2 things. One, it gives you something tactile to do. Any number of things can fill that, but that's one of them. And the other, so you're focused on a task there, which helps to divert some of your attention. And the other one is, if you are breathing too fast and you're at risk of hyperventilating, you rebreathe your own outflow, and therefore you'll minimize the chance that you'll deplete your carbon dioxide, which is what causes hyperventilation. So,
Yep, that helped a lot actually. And then after about that 20 minutes, it would come and it was there. It never totally fully left, but I say it probably went down to about a 1 and then back up again. And then the flight was quick. We went from Baltimore to Cleveland, so it was only about an hour, a little less than an hour. And then when we got there, it happened to be the same flight crew coming back to Baltimore. So we only had about a half an hour after we landed. And I get completely exhausted from all the anxiety. So the way back was still a little rough in the beginning, takeoff and getting on, but then it was mostly fine after about 10 minutes. We did have a rough landing on the way to Cleveland, and it felt pretty
She's
bad.
not kidding. It was a rough landing.
Not the
he planted it on the runway there firmer than you'd like to, because as a crew member, that's the moment of pride. People may forget everything else, but they'll remember the landing. So.
And then again, we talked to them after, and they actually, the more experienced pilot was joking with the younger pilot, said, "Yeah, that was a rough landing." And then they actually, on the way back, they had us come up to the cockpit, and actually, that was both the way there and back, and we were able to go in, which surprised me. I didn't think they would let us do that after security. But
and that's an important point to make. I recommend, whether I'm there or not, I recommend when you pre-board to not have to go through the hassle of the accordion type thing when you're boarding. But I also recommend it so you get a little extra time and you can meet the flight crew there. It's just a great opportunity to do that.
So then we came back to Baltimore, and I'm now starting to try to figure out when I can book my next flight. And I'm hoping.
So did your physical symptoms, were they pretty much what you experienced when you on the flight, the bad flight, and then the flight that you got off of? Would you say that they were pretty close to? Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I would say they were.
That's what's hard to replicate when you're not flying.
Yeah, I think if you weren't there on Thursday, I would have definitely gotten off again.
And other than not getting off, or not other than going forward with flight, what would you say was the biggest difference from past experiences? I mean, obviously I was there, but what was it about that, or what was it about you and your attitude that was different this time?
I just, I think the why of just not wanting to miss family vacations and traveling. I don't have to travel for work, so that it wasn't an issue there. I was really trying to focus on my family and not wanting to miss those anymore. And I think I keep forgetting, I need to write down the expression you have about fear, how it's kind of with this situation, it's misguided. And
and she's talking about the acronym FEAR, false experiences appearing real.
So that was what I was really trying to focus on, and using kind of every sound I asked you to explain.
Sure.
And then I was actually realizing on the way back, we started talking about some of the accidents that had happened, like with the Boeing. And I had told my husband that. He said, "You were talking about that on an airplane."
And I was like, guy uses Capt Ron.
I said, I guess we were.
That was the check ride. You passed the check ride with flying colors. And one of the things that I recall, you can add your comments on this, was when we were flying, and you really, I mean, you were leveled off by the time we were ready to begin the descent. And I joke with people, that you're not really afraid, you just wanted the attention, but you really didn't resemble someone who had anywhere near that anxiety. You didn't resemble anybody other than the rest of the people up there. And what I wanted to do is, and this is what I try to tell people, is try to capture that moment, maybe even putting down some notes or something, any way you can, to try to imprint that. Because what we tend to remember are the tough spots. And the reason I wanted you to do that is because I said, now when we get to the boarding part of the return flight, I want you to notice the differences between then, the first flight, and then, and you did. And I mean, you were amazingly calm. Not amazingly, depending on what I've seen, but for you, you were probably amazed at how calm you had gotten there. It is just amazing how much people can calm down, and it's not trying to keep yourself from getting upset. It's choosing a way that's different, a different response, and kind of, it's crazy, but it's kind of allowing yourself to feel all the misery and try to get through the other side, saying, that the waves, and you mentioned the waves. What was it like for you when when at least initially?
Yeah, it's bad. It's really bad for me. It feels almost like my throat kind of starts to feel
Yeah.
like I can't breathe. I get really, really thirsty. I feel sick to my stomach, almost like you're kind of drowning essentially in your own, I don't,
Saliva. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
own
Well,
anxiety.
I mean, it causes it's so much stress when you start to tremble like that. That is a high level of stress. And what happens is there's a lot of physiological changes, which are what really make it so aggravating, because you can't ignore those, right?
Yeah.
We do get dry mouth. We do get upset stomach sometimes, and it's the constriction. You really do. Your throat does close down a little bit, because that's what it's going to do in a real crisis. The trouble is, it's not real. It's just our perception that's triggering that. And it's such an interesting thing. Who would have thought 40 years ago or 39 years ago I would ever be doing this with people? But it's like watching. It's helpful to me to look at my own stress in life and how to manage it better. And the big thing that I love is hearing from people that other areas of their life where they had stress, they're able to apply the same techniques. It's just that flying brings out the worst in us sometimes because of that.
Ron,
The
Ron, there are a couple of
Go ahead.
questions, Regina. So, so I'm gonna read you the statement first because I think that's so cool. Regina, some of that sounds like you're my twin. I've done all the same things, not getting on a flight, not sleeping, just awful stuff. But Captain Ron's program really has helped, and it is a process. So I just want you to know that people can really, really relate to what you were sharing. The couple of questions. Number one, what was your big why for this particular push to, overcome your fear of flying, seeking help? So if you maybe let's start with that one.
Sure. My biggest why was as I get older, I didn't want to have it get worse. I felt like, I think it's pretty common when we get older, our fears can get bigger. So it was almost like I needed to tackle this now, and I still need to tackle it. And also I want to travel. I want to get to Colorado. I don't want to miss that trip again.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
That was really,
that's a big why. And as a therapist myself, I can definitely attest to the fact that what you just said, if you don't work on it actively, right, we build a lot more past experiences that carry much more weight, and it's much harder to stop that kind of train of energy and experience. The second question, you were talking about waves, and I think you mentioned 10 out of 10 before. Do you feel that you would have also been successful without Captain Ron sitting next to you? Maybe not in the same way, but I guess the question is really, do you feel confident? That's exactly the question, that you can fly without Captain Ron.
I wish I could fly with him on every flight would be the answer.
Yeah.
But he did make a recording for me. So I do plan on using those techniques and the harmonizer, sort of repeating what I did with
Mhm.
him on this last flight. I think I honestly, I'm not sure if I would have gotten on a plane again without his help. I can't say that indefinitely, but like I said, I was close to flying before, and then I literally got on and I had to get off. So
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
shame associated with that was pretty heavy. So I
Mhm.
really just needed someone to kind of explain the terminologies behind flying and kind of dismiss my fears. And that was exactly what helped on Thursday for me. And
Yeah.
I can let you know because I'm going to fly again here. I think I might try to go to Charlotte in the end of May.
Which
Take
would
it up.
be about an hour, 15, probably something like that. Yeah.
Yep.
And I'd like to add that, God, if the only way people can get on is to fly with me, that's a loser program if you do that. Sure, it was helpful to her. Let's talk about what it means to fly with me. I would love to do it. Anybody, if you're interested in that, let me know. We'll talk about it. But it helps to the story you tell yourself. Right. So you had in your mind, you didn't even know me, but you had in your mind that's got to be something better about that, being able to answer questions and whatever it comes up. And that's valid. But the thing that I try to do with you, one of the things you didn't have the opportunity to try some of the things that you had been practicing before that, because I'm sitting right there. It'd be foolish not to have a conversation like that. But on the way back, it's interesting, and I only want people to do this if they can move forward without me. And that's most of the people that come in contact with Dean or not. That's their goal and their need. And I'll throw out. I got a note from Maureen the other day, and I'll share this in detail on another show. But she wrote me. She said, "Oh, I'm sitting here, and I was doing terrible, and then they announced that they're going to delay the boarding for a mechanical problem." She was just having a meltdown, which I'm sure that you could understand or identify with, Regina. And so I just, and I encourage any of you, send me a text, call me, whatever you need to do. And so she sent me that. I just thought and came up with a little bit of an answer. And it's not just a one-liner. I wanted to give her something to hang on to. And so what happens, I hear from her like 2 or 3 days later today in particular. And she said, "Oh my God, it turned out." And I pointed out to her, those are just challenges, the delay. What did she do with the delay? She read through what I told her and she was able to talk herself back off the ledge. And that's what this is about. And I have total confidence in you, Regina. You'll be able to do the same thing. You will not avoid all the anxiety. It will be there for whatever time you need it in your life, quote unquote, but you will be able to get yourself through those things. And I think the biggest thing is accepting the waves. And the waves have a physiological basis for it. That is when your adrenaline and cortisol are in maximum production. They are supposed to make you feel all that anxiety. I researched today. People ask me, what if I have a panic attack? All this, and I never really have researched it. I found zero. People do not die from panic attacks. You wish you could die.
I wish you could die.
But you don't. And again, just a quick, a little bit of closing. What do you say to someone out there who feels like they could never do this?
Well, I did it, so I'm a good example, and my anxiety is really bad when I fly.
Yeah.
So you just really have to understand your why, and you just have to go right through it, unfortunately. And can be the most uncomfortable experience you'll ever experience. But I think just that first step of walking through it step by step and just going right through it.
Yeah.
For me, I almost wish I could fly every day for like a month just to kind of just have it over and over and over again. Because I'm still in shock about that flight back. I just couldn't believe how I really didn't have much panic at all. So
it was really pretty effortless coming back. Yeah. And that is what people have a hard time believing. It's how quickly it is like that. And despite the fact that we picked FearlessFlight for a name for this program, it isn't about being fearless. It's about not not flying. That's what it's about. And I'm just proud as a peacock to have met you and to watch you in action, because it was totally inspiring to do that. So, you didn't become fearless, you became willing, and
Yes.
that's the difference. And that's where everything changes. You got to stay on that airplane. It's one of the phobias that really sucks, because you can't just move closer or further away from a snake or a spider or whatever. You got to get on the doggone airplane, and it's going to leave the ground, and that's tough.
Yeah.
And for everybody out there watching, this is what progress looks like. It's not perfection, but it's showing up and staying with it. So I just am so proud to have known you, and I want to congratulate you again. So
Thank you, and thank you for all your help.
you bet. And you could stay with us here for just a couple minutes. Dieter is going to come back on here. One of the things that we've been pushing is not a good word, that we've been promoting is our new flap survey. And it just so happens when I look at and we didn't, and Regina and I didn't talk a lot about this, but her profile is her number one fear or priority there, or profile is turbulence translator, and that's sensitivity to motion. And I saw that I mean, the moment that tug started to move us, I mean, I can't tell you, from all the terrible tug pushes that I've gone through, it was probably about as gentle as you can get, and it just triggered her. So motion is a great sensitivity to her. And the two that come up after that were escape strategist, fear being trapped, and then backseat pilot, once an understanding. Would you say that pretty much describes you? Your motion and including sights and sounds is very threatening to you, and then you want to get out of there, which is why you didn't get on the time that was so eventful for you. So and what this does, and we're getting more and more positive feedback about the flap survey. So take that. I'm sure Dieter's put it in the notes. You can take it for free. You can take it over and over. So the nice thing is you can take this next time you go to fly before, be after, and see what comes up. And because it shows not only what kinds of things cause you to trigger your fear, but the intensity. And it will actually show when the intensity gets left. And it's great evidence that you're not ever going to likely to get completely free of it unless you fly like I did as a pilot, but you're going to watch the sensitivity to it diminish. And so do that, take it, it's free. And it also helps you direct your level of study or your direction of study. It tells you what path is best to go on to get over that. So anyway, any other comments, Dieter?
Yeah, so the first thing is somebody wanted, you are not alone, Regina. We're all here to become stronger, and you've taken the first step. This is awesome.
Oh, thank you. That's sweet.
It's really cool. I mean, there are lots more, but this one really stuck out. Also, the reminder that it's okay to be anxious and feel. There's a great book many years ago, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyways. And that would really be the attitude. I think that you have noticed allows you to accept yourself as you are, and yet at the same time be empowered to step into a new you, so to speak, right? The new you, where it's okay to feel the sensations and also have a completely different support experience within yourself. So, and I just want to point out the flight anxiety profile survey. That link is in the chat, and for a split second I saw Ron flash up.
You can see it on the screen.
There
Hopefully.
it is. Yep. And that's actually
and all that color and all that artistic stuff, that's credit to Dieter. So
the fact that it's
green,
like so every different, depending on what your main type is, will also be your main report color, because as we know from color psychology, there's a big correlation between colors, what you resonate, what you don't resonate, or what triggers, right? Certain colors definitely can have strong triggers. And I just also want to say That's a great comment too. I used to think that I had to wait to fly until I wasn't fearful. Now I know
mistake.
that that's
Yeah.
not true. I can feel afraid and do it anyway. So that's really awesome, Katie. I appreciate that comment. So all I want to say to you, Regina, thank you for your courage. Thank you for your willingness to be seen and heard and witnessed in your process, because that really, I feel, and based on the comments, I seem I seem to be affirmed by that, gives other people permission to, take the next step, whether that's with us or with anybody else, doesn't matter. The importance is, like you said, is it's that movement in the right direction, right? So,
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. We did, and that's so true. The social part of this. It kind of takes a back seat sometimes, but you can hear it in the comments that people feel isolated and alone when we suffer emotional issues like this in our life. And the most important thing is to stay connected with people, and that's why I say meet the pilot. If you think he's nervous about the flight, please don't get on without asking him, "Are you scared?" Because you look like you are. And again, that was one of the most courageous things that I saw Regina do, and just one after another. And tonight, what we really did is we took a journey with her. And thanks again, Regina, for sharing that journey with us. It's something that obviously from the comments is very familiar with more than just Regina out there. And that moment of, I can't do this, the fear, the hesitation, the physical sensations, they feel overwhelming. And when I saw her, we came through security separately. I was waiting on the other side, and I saw her, and as soon as she made eye contact, the tears came, and she felt embarrassed as well as sad. And I just said, "Hey, let it flow, because those are tears of stress hormones, and get rid of them there." So, but what she walked through, the willingness to stay there and stay on board, is what changed her experience that day. And it's not that so much that the fear disappeared, is that she made a decision to move forward, because the fear didn't go. The fear went up with her as we got in the beginning of the flight, but she hung right in there. And we talked about a turning point, what it felt like, what she was going through, and then to notice when it had disappeared a little bit. Not even so much the reduction, but all of a sudden it's kind of like she had this awareness. Oh, it's not like it was before. And that's all you need. And that can be inspiring to stay with you for the next time you fly. So the next time she flies, it isn't going to be, her expectations are, I'm not going to have any moments like that. They can be like, it comes in waves, and all I got to do is survive the waves. Just no less than if you were standing on a beach and you were standing there watching these big waves come sweep over you. Once they go by, they've gotten rid of their energy, and you can do the same. So I'm just so grateful that she showed up with us tonight, and this is the last time. Thank you so much.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks, Dieter, for helping facilitate this. And come on back next week, because here's one lady that says it's positive.
You can do it.
You can do it.